Assalamu alaikum. So this question is to all the three ulama. So where can we get your previous work or previous lectures or books? And if we have any future questions, how to reach out? Assalamu alaikum. My question is, where can we get your previous work, previous talks or previous books? And for future questions, how to reach out to all three?
मुफ्ती अशफाक काजी साहब, इनका यूट्यूब चैनल है फैमिली फर्स्ट के नाम से, वहाँ पर इनकी खिदमात भी आपको मिल सकती है और नेक्स्ट फ्यूचर क्वेश्चंस भी आप इनसे मालूम कर सकते हैं। और हमारा भी अभी जो QR कोड यहाँ पर डिस्प्ले हुआ था मुफ्ती तौफीक मंसूर के नाम से, वहाँ पर आपको यूट्यूब चैनल पर सारे वीडियोस मिलेंगे और suffa.in SUFFA.in ये वेबसाइट पर जाकर आस्क फतवा एक वहाँ पर ऑप्शन है, वहाँ जाकर आप सारे सवालात पूछ सकते हैं।
Assalamu alaikum Sheikh. The question is for Sheikh Yahya. Sheikh highlighted the concept of extravagant spending. So I have always struggled with the concept of, since want is something which is a subjective as the entire concept. So where do we have a line wherein you differentiate between the want and the need? Wherein you have the characteristics of the Ashab of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wherein you have Abu Bakr during the battle of Tabuk, wherein he had given the entire of his wealth for the deen of religion of Islam. And then you have the characteristics of Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, who was against the monopoly of owning a property. So where do we where do we differentiate between, where do we draw a line wherein you say this is the need and this is the want?
MashaAllah, very nice question, and it is very important for all of us to understand this concept that when we look at the mainstream Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, that is where we will find the actual concept and the moderation of deen. Because there were people amongst the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum also who had some personal inclinations, like how Abu Dharr radiyallahu anhu al-Ghifari, he was an exception, and he was basically amongst the zuhad of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhu. He was always against any type of retaining or saving any type of wealth. So there are different peoples in the ummah as well. So nowadays also you will find some people, it is better for them to adopt that way as well. So for each and every person it is different, but what Sharia prescribes is the moderate path, and that is why that we find that even in spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is where we should adopt moderation. Yes, we find in the books of the fuqaha and the works of the fuqaha, we find reference to what you mentioned as the needs being subjective, because people are living in different status in society. This is something that has been accepted also, and accordingly each and every person will determine. So this is, like we said, it is not something that it is objective, or we can say that, in the needs only these are the inclusive of needs, and besides this all are wants. Regarding each and every, there are certain things that are regarded as needs in a certain society. In another society it is not a need. So I'll give you an example, like for example in India, or you go in the African continent where labor is very cheap. So labor is basically indispensable. Each and every person needs to have labor. There are people working in the homes. Whereas you go to Europe and America, this is a luxury. No one can afford that. So obviously there that will not be regarded as a need there. And here it will be regarded as a need. So depending on the area, depending on the locality, depending on the status, needs obviously will differ. But at the same time one has to make sure that one doesn't go overboard. And for that, each and every person with his own issues and one's own areas of the details, we should approach the scholars, and then we can get guidance customized to the halat that a person has. Hope I have answered your question.
Assalamu alaikum Sheikh, this is Afzal. And my question is to Sheikh Yahya itself. So my question is like, suppose a business which is established, right, and then we take up loans to save taxes. And then according to the Islam, the tax we pay is only the zakat system, right? And paying tax to the government is not that necessary, is what I have understood from this, from my research. So how do we, save taxes while not involving in haram stuff, is what my question is. And is it permissible to pay tax to the government or not? Thank you.
See, with regards to, because we are the citizens of India and we are living in the country, we have to abide by the laws of this country. So we cannot adopt a policy wherein we say that to fulfill the laws of this country is not necessary. Because according to the Sharia, our Sharia says that any law of the land, any law of the country which does not contradict the Quran and Sunnah, it is important and it is necessary for us to follow that as well. So we are bound by the laws of the land as well. The concept of tax planning, we can do tax planning wherein that boundaries which have been given, the possibilities, that the sections which are provided by the government. But when we look at the Sharia compliance of it, now there is a question, because many of the items that are used for tax planning, we find that involvement in riba and loans. So certain aspects in that, certain categories wherein we find that it is going to help us in saving tax or in helping us reduce our tax liability for the objective, with the purpose and the objective of saving our halal earned money. A person can get involved in this with the purpose of not to acquire the loan or not to get involved with the intention of involving oneself in a ribawi or an interest-based transaction, but to save and safeguard our halal earned income. This is something that is deemed permissible by certain scholars. So there is, in certain cases, I'm not sure exactly which is the business. You will have to come, personally with regards to the query, what exactly the business is and which sector is it and what is the plan that you are looking for. Then I can, inshallah, give you a proper query, a proper answer, inshallah. With regards, did you ask about zakat as well? Oh, okay. So with regards to tax and zakat, very important to distinguish between the two. That one is, which is regarding income tax or any type of tax. You see, tax is something that the government is taking the tax for the purpose of the welfare of the nation, welfare of the country. That is a totally different objective. And that is not, even though it might be necessary for us to give, but it is not a worship, an act of worship. Zakat, on the other hand, is an act of worship. So you can never compare the two. With regards to zakat, when we speak about the economic system of Islam, that is when we appreciate the concept of zakat, that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has introduced this concept so that the distribution of even wealth can take place, and how can liquidity be managed in any economy or in a society. and this will lead to a just and fair economy. On the other hand, a very important distinction is that tax is on the income that a person earns, and zakat is on the savings. So a person might have probably crores of rupees, but when the wealth comes, he spends it all. He might incur taxes, but he will not incur zakah. Because zakat, if he saves that amount, and that amount stays with him for the entire year, that is when the zakat will be liable for him to pay.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible? Yeah. My question is, what is the difference between riba and interest? And why dealing with banks is haram? And how Islamic banks are different from the normal banks? Is it because we take a fixed amount of interest from the bank? If so, then we also take a fixed amount of rentals from the properties. Is it not haram? Because the tenant might not have money to pay the rent. Still, he is liable to pay on every first of or whichever the date is being agreed upon. So is that not haram? Is that not squeezing the other person? Jazakallah khair.
MashaAllah, very good question, a very important question. And the reason that this question has come up is that when we see there are certain misconceptions with regards to riba, that what is riba, we are not aware of the definition of riba. So one point that I would like to highlight first is one misconception with regards to riba is that anything fixed is riba and anything variable is not riba. This is the first misconception. So, like brother mentioned, rent is fixed, but it is not riba. On the other hand, if for example, I have invested a certain amount in a company or with a business, and they are giving me returns on a variable basis on a percentage of the amount that I've given them. So even though that percentage will be variable, but still that will be riba. Because the reason is that I am receiving a percentage on the actual amount that I have invested, and it has nothing to do with the profits. I hope I'm clear. With regards to riba and interest, the question that you asked, with regards to riba and interest, so there is no difference between the two. And the reason why we find the difference, Mufti Taqi Usmani Sahib has mentioned a very important point. When the industrial age started, so as you must be knowing with regards to history, that in olden days the church was in charge of everything. The church was basically giving loans, lending, everything. Now when the church was doing the stuff, they came across, because they had the Bible, and the Bible prohibited riba. So a person by the name of John Calvin, this is mentioned by Mufti Taqi Usmani Sahib, he came up with this theory. The first person, Mufti Taqi says, the first person in history to come up with this theory of difference between interest and usury. So they said, John Calvin said, that the riba that has been prohibited in the Bible is usury, it's not interest. Because they wanted to make out a way to legitimize what they were doing, to legitimize their practice. So you know what? Whatever is mentioned in the Bible is usury. And that we are not doing it. This is interest. Interest is, we should have interest in it. The name also is attractive. So this was the first time, and from there many Muslim thinkers also adopted that. But now when this thing was discussed, I think around 20 years ago, 20, 25 years ago, in the Majma' al-Fiqh al-Islami Jeddah, this was under discussion, wherein all the scholars there unanimously they passed this resolution that there is no difference whatsoever between interest and usury, and whatever interest we see now is there in the banks, that is the interest and that is the riba that is prohibited in the Quran Kareem. So there is no difference whatsoever. This was a theory merely presented by John Calvin and to legitimize their activities and trade activities that they were doing. And this has nothing to do with the Quran and Sunnah. I hope I've answered your query. Ji.
Any questions from the sisters side? None for now? Okay.
I have one. I think I can be audible.
So, one second. Can I request the sisters to start the dinner? Meanwhile, we'll take 2 or 3 more questions. But if you can start, you can pick up the plates and go back to your places and continue listening to the answers, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. We are living in a banking system era, so every business balance sheet has got one column called income from other sources. So obviously that's written from the banks. Whatever they keep money for operating money, they will keep it in the bank, so that the income yields from that only the column defines that income. So in this context, every business is not halal. So how can you justify for that? Thank you.
So basically, what is your question?
My question is, every business receives some income in the form of riba. So no business is halal business in this banking era, because we have to keep our money in the bank. Being entrepreneur, we have to keep our money in the bank. Obviously we get some interest. That is what they mentioned in the balance sheet, like it's the income from other sources. Apart from whatever the product sold, everything, other sources, there is income from other sources. So how can you justify whether we should invest in those kind of businesses, or we have to stay away from the business?
I got you. Jazakumullah khair. A very important question. And this is probably might be a question in many people's minds. That when we look at the screening criteria and the screening norms of Sharia compliance with regards to investing in shares, so we find that there is a certain leeway that has been given. We find that with regards to interest-bearing debts, there is some have given a 33%, some have given a 25% leeway. And with regards to, like you said, non-permissible income, according to some 2.5% of the total income, and according to some around 5%, according to the IOF standards. So obviously 0.1% of riba is also haram. So why would this be permitted and this be permissible? So very importantly, we need to understand that in the current scenario, in the current world that we live in, with regards to financials or fiqh al-mu'amalat, with regards to the financial transactions and the rules and the regulations in this regard, it is important to understand that rather than thinking individually, we've got to think collectively. So we live in a country, collectively, on a collective basis, business is a collective need of the community. We cannot tell the entire country or the entire community to isolate themselves from business. We don't do business. We cannot isolate them from the capital markets, because capital markets is the lifeline of the economy. Now, one option is that we stay away, we isolate ourselves until and unless we find 100% Sharia compliance. But in that way, because we are not in control, the financial system is being run by all others. essence, what ulama ikram did, what they came up with a plan that what we are going to do is we are going to implement it gradually. A gradual implementation of the Sharia norms. So yeah, you won't find any company, if now a person would say that no, any company with 1% interest income is not permissible. In the entire stock market you will not find 5,000 listed companies, you will not find even one company. So what will happen to the investment and the people investment opportunities for the people? This is a need, a basic need of the community. And that is why, this is one of the reasons we find that people are going into Ponzi schemes. They are wasting their wealth. So it is a need of the community that we provide them with an alternative. Yes, this alternative is not 100%, but we are not saying this is the ideal. We are moving towards the ideal. So this is a temporary norm for the time being, and that is why many of the ulama say that we don't call it halal, we call it Sharia compliant. So for the time being it is Sharia compliant, but in future inshallah our ideal is that how we can set up a system which is 100% financially Sharia compliant, and that will provide such an environment that every company companies or major companies will do business without any type of exposure to riba, inshallah. And together with that, Shaykh is reminding me that together with that permissibility of investment, but at the same time we are not saying that that income, that is haram income, is permissible for you. You've got to purify that. If you receive in the form of capital gains or dividends, whatever benefit you get, if that company, say for example, is involved in 2.5% of haram income, you have to take out or eliminate and purify your income from it with a 2.5% from that and give it out in charity. So that is also there. We are not saying that it is halal for you. We are just saying that dealing in that company, buying shares in that company, will not get you involved in that sin. Ji.
Assalamu alaikum. This question is for Mufti Ashfaq Qazi. We know that financial literacy is lacking in the ummah, and even Islamic way of doing business or tijarat is also lacking, the knowledge is lacking in the ummah. I personally think it's because the education is not at the lower level. I mean, we have to start much early. Is there something happening at the ground level where the madaris and the maktabs are, getting this syllabus where kids can start learning, getting to know about financial literacy and Islamic way of doing tijara? That's my question. Are we doing something about educating from an early age? And the second part is actually follow up on another brother's question. He said rent is equivalent to riba. Can you just answer on that also once again, please? Thank you.
First question about the knowledge of mu'afiqul mu'amalat. So alhamdulillah, nowadays there are so many academic papers, basically not in India but in Malaysia, in Sri Lanka and the nearby country. MashaAllah, there are papers and the institutes, they are working on that. And in India also so many, mashallah, like Fiqhul Muamalat Salman, Markaz al-Iqtisad al-Islami. He started here nearby. And inshallah, started, that's mean the people are, inshallah will get knowledge, and day by day increase the knowledge, and then they will find the way for the Sharia compliant policies or Sharia compliant business strategies, inshallah. And the other thing, leasing means in riba there is money against money. If I am giving Mufti Sahab some money, I am taking on that money the interest, that's money is against money. If there is something dealings, business, कि आप कोई चीज उसके बदले में दे रहे हैं, यानी एक मकान है या कार है, اور اس کا آپ اجارہ یعنی کرایہ لے رہے ہیں. یہ دور نبوی میں بھی تھا, رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کے دور میں تھا. تو کسی شے کا کرایہ لینا اور کسی پیسے کے بدلے میں پیسہ لینا, دونوں میں بہت فرق ہے. کسی شے کے بدلے میں اس کا کرایہ لینا اور اس کو فکس کر کے لینا 100% شریعہ کمپلائنٹ ہے, اور شریعت میں اس کی 100% اجازت ہے رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کے دور سے. تو دونوں کو سیم نہیں کہا جا سکتا, اور اس کا ریزن ہے, اس کے پیچھے بہت بڑا ایک نظام ہے کہ ربوی نظام جب بڑھتا ہے تو جس طرح اس لیکچر میں بھی بتایا گیا کہ پھر یہ جو دولت کا ارتکاز ہے, جو منی مارکیٹ ہے, وہ کچھ خاص لوگوں کے ہاتھ میں چلی جاتی ہے, کیونکہ وہ پیسے پر پیسہ, اور اس کے بالمقابل کوئی ایسیٹ نہیں ہوتا, کوئی بزنس نہیں ہوتا ہے. لہذا شریعت نے اس کو حرام کر دیا ہے. لیکن جہاں لیزنگ کی بات آتی ہے, جہاں رینٹنگ کی بات آتی ہے, رینٹل پراپرٹیز کی بات آتی ہے, تو وہ 100% حلال ہے, اور دونوں میں بہت بڑا فرق ہے, دونوں ایک ہو ہی نہیں سکتے. جی یوٹیوب سے جو کمائی ہوتی ہے, اب یہ دیکھنا پڑے گا. دیکھیے کچھ سوالات تو ایسے ہوتے ہیں جو ڈپینڈ اپون دا سچویشن اور پرسنالٹیز ہوتی ہیں. یوٹیوب کی کون سی کمائی ہے؟ ظاہر ہے کہ جو طریقہ کار کمائی کے اندر دو باتیں ضروری ہیں. ایک تو جو انویسٹمنٹ ہے, جو منی ہے, جو پیسہ ہے, وہ حلال ہو, اور جس راستے سے آیا ہے وہ حلال ہو. اس کی آسان مثال کہ لوگ جو ہے نا وہ دیوالی کے موقع پر کچھ گفٹ آتے ہیں تو اس کے بارے میں سوال کرتے ہیں. تو یہ کہ وہ اگر چڑھایا ہوا نہیں ہے کسی معبود کے, کسی خدا کے سامنے, کسی گاڈ کے سامنے, تو وہ حلال ہوگا, یہ کہا جاتا ہے. لیکن اس کے پیچھے اور ایک بات اہم ہے کہ وہ حلال سورس سے آیا ہو. اگر حرام سورس سے کسی مسلمان کا بھی ہدیہ ہے تو وہ بھی حرام ہی ہوگا. ایک مسلمان ہے, بہت اچھا ہے, لیکن اس کا بزنس حرام ہے, تو اس کی طرف سے اگر ہدیہ آتا ہے تو وہ بھی حرام ہوگا. اسی طرح سے یوٹیوب کی آمدنی کے اندر اسکالرز کا یہ کہنا ہے کہ اگر آپ کی ایکٹیویٹیز بالکل 100% شریعہ کمپلائنٹ ہے, جیسے مفتی توفیق صاحب کا ایک یوٹیوب چینل ہے اور وہ ایک خدمت کر رہے ہیں, آس فتویٰ کے اندر کوشچن آنسر کر رہے ہیں, اور یہ سارے جو پروگرامز ہوتے ہیں اس کو لائیو ٹیلی کاسٹ کہیے, یا یہ کہ اس طرح اپڈیٹ کر رہے ہیں, اور وہاں سے یوٹیوب اگر آپ کو یہ پیسے دیتا ہے تو پھر وہ حلال ہے, جائز ہے. لیکن اگر وہاں آپ کو آپشن آتا ہے ایڈورٹائزنگ کا, اور اس ایڈورٹائزنگ میں آپ نے اس کو کیٹیگرائز نہیں کیا اور ہر قسم کا ایڈورٹائز ہو رہا ہے اس میں, تو ظاہر ہے کہ اگر غیر شرعی ایڈورٹائز کا آپ کو اگر انکم مل رہا ہے تو وہ حلال نہیں ہوگا. تو وہاں آپشن ہوتا ہے آپ کے لیے کہ آپ کون کون سے ایڈورٹائز کو اپنے چینل کے لیے الاؤ کریں گے. تو جو شرعی ضابطے میں ہیں, جو جائز چیزیں ہیں, اس کا ایڈورٹائز ہو رہا ہے آپ کے چینل پر تو وہ بھی حلال ہوگا. اور اگر غیر شرعی ہے اور اس کا ایڈورٹائز ہوتا ہے تو اس صورت میں آپ کا انکم بھی صحیح اور حلال نہیں ہوگا. دیکھیے 0% EMI یہ تو ورڈ میں, لفظ میں کہنے کے لیے ہے کہ آپ آج لیں تو بھی اتنی قیمت ہے اور قسطوں میں لیں تب بھی اتنی قیمت ہے. ویری سمپل کہ اگر کوئی بینک اس کے اندر انوالو نہیں ہے, کوئی انٹرسٹ بیسڈ فائنینشیل انسٹیٹیوٹ انوالو نہیں ہے, جیسے بجاج فائنانس, ایسا کوئی فائنینشیل انسٹیٹیوٹ انوالو نہیں ہے, اور اسٹریٹ فارورڈ کمپنی کی طرف سے اگر اس طرح کا قسطوں پر EMI دیا جا رہا ہے تب تو جائز ہے. لیکن نارمل پریکٹس ایسی ہے کہ بینک یا فائنینشیل انسٹیٹیوٹ انوالو ہوتے ہیں اور وہ بیہائنڈ دا سین ربا کا اس کے اندر ایلیمنٹ ہوتا ہے, لہذا وہ جائز نہیں ہے. جی 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 जी. Yeah, very clear. But the financial banking or the financial transaction is there. अगर आप उसकी, क्योंकि इस मसले में हम लोगों ने जो इदारे थे उनसे बात की कि किस तरह का ट्रांजैक्शन होता है. बैंक एक्चुअली ये फाइनेंशियल जो ये इंस्टीट्यूट है ये कंपनीज के साथ एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग करती है और उस अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि हम आपका इतना सेल करेंगे और इसमें आप हमको इतना मार्जिन देंगे. तो जाहिर है कि नो दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम.
इसी बेसिकली इसका जो कॉन्सेप्ट है, जो क्लैरिटी ये है कि आई गिव यू एन एग्जांपल कि मैं एक मोबाइल फ़ोन लेने जाता हूँ, इट इज़ कॉस्टिंग 12,000 से फॉर एग्जांपल. ठीक है. सो दे गोना टेल मी अभी पैसे दो तो 12,000 है और EMI पर लो तो भी 12,000 है. 0% फाइनेंसिंग है. नाउ आउटवर्डली बोथ आर द सेम, but the difference is that EMI के अंदर there is interest involved. How? When I opt for EMI, they will put a discount of 2,000 on the cost of the phone. So the phone will become 10,000. 10,000 का फोन होगा, 2,000 इंटरेस्ट लगा के आपको 12,000 का करके देंगे. So outcome is the same, but in the second transaction there is interest involved. I hope I'm clear. You getting me? So I am taking on one hand the 12,000 का फोन, वहां पर 12,000, and this is the difference you will see in the invoice. If you tell the guy, you know what, 12,000 का मुझे taxable invoice दो, he will not give you. Yeah. जी. No. The company, listen, you are buying the phone for 10,000. You getting me? So, you see, when you opt for financing, there are two things that happen. There are two transactions that happen. One is you are buying a phone, okay? And the number two, you are opting or you are trying or you are basically borrowing money from the bank or taking financing. So you are buying the phone for 10,000 and you are getting finance from the bank. The bank is financing you, adding the interest amount and charging you. The invoice that will be given to you, it will be given for 10,000. I hope I'm clear. Definitely. Assalamu alaikum. So what I'm trying to tell you is when we when we are speaking about one is there is no transaction going on. When we are speaking about transaction going on with regards to this transaction and with regards to I think, I don't know if you must be having, there is a circular with regards to from RBI that no type or any bank cannot give interest, cannot give any loan without interest. On 0% interest, no bank can give a loan. There is a circular from RBI in this regard. Yeah. Interest based, yeah.
But there are certain policies by certain banks where they will not charge you interest to the end. That was his question and the government.
That is not possible. Not possible. That is why. Oh, okay, sure. So we can take it up after position.
My question is,
Okay, sure.
okay, my question is, Islamic banks have this musharaka model, diminishing musharaka, where the customer takes the house and then
every month they are paying the rent and increasing their share over 20 years, they own the house. My question is this possible, is it possible to structure an educational loan like a musharaka, where the investor owns the degree, so once the student graduates, they pay every month, right, and then they eventually own the degree. Is it possible? I'm just thinking, is there any problem with that?
I think it's stretching it too much, because it's not a degree is not a physical tangible asset, so it is difficult. Yeah, we can think about a solution in this regard, and I think there is also a product with regards to educational loans, but inshallah we will think about it, inshallah.
There are different economic systems in the world, capitalism, socialism, and other systems. Why Islamic economic system has not taken off, whereas they have the most Islamic countries?
Why has Islamic system?
Economic system has not taken off, has not been available to all.
Who's going to take up the Islamic system? Me and you. We are not there. We are not there to take up. 400 years ago, when the system was being made, we took the back seat. So they got the thing, and they prepared the entire system. They are running the system. So whoever is running the system, they will run according to their beliefs, right? So we have to go forward.
Yeah, just to keep the questions bouncing between different people, I just wanted to add that in the case of the EMI, I'm assuming that even the company is giving you the EMI on its own, even without the involvement of the bank.
No.
No, 1 minute. I'm assuming. However, when you question the company that if I default, what happens? So if they are going to charge you interest on the default, then that automatically becomes a riba-based transaction. Am I right?
You see, the company itself, they do not finance, because any company cannot just finance unless and until they have a financial, probably like for example Samsung. So Samsung have a financing company, Apple have a financing company, and they finance specific products. So they finance from the Apple company, but the financing department, but that is not all products, certain products. But the actual company who is selling the phones, they cannot finance.
I mean, it will also be the car. And higher purchase.
True.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.
So my question, I have two questions basically. First one is, the banking system as we see it today has not been there from the beginning, meaning just like 1600, 1700, these Bank of England got established and all. Before that, there were Islamic golden era, we say it, Khilafat Rashida and the other Khalifas were there. What were the business model and the things which are going on in the market? You have mentioned some models, right? So where can I find more information about all this? And what was the banking model at that time, before this interest-based banking has been introduced?
You see, you will find in this regard books of Mufti Taqi Uthmani Sahib, very good. There's one book, Introduction to Islamic Finance, a very book where I think you should go over it. Then whatever questions you have, then we can take it up later on, inshallah.
Sure. Another question. Today we see in the market, and for example this Rehbar as well, people mention, the businesses they mention, we have a Sharia board and we have such and such people in our Sharia board. So is this guidance only happen during the establishment of the business or during the beginning? Like, okay, they consult you, or the muftis, they consult the muftis and they say, this is the model we are going to bring in, and is this Sharia compliant or is this halal? And Mufti Sahib say, okay, this is Sharia compliant. But over the time, Is there that board still there and the guidance still there, and they go through the daily, or not the daily but yearly at least, the businesses of such businesses which claim to be Sharia compliant?
You see, basically with regards to, I will speak about the Sharia board because I am in the Sharia board. It is not, it is when the concept started, that's when they consulted the scholars as well. And when the concept is going on a day-to-day basis, if not on a day-to-day basis, frequently whenever the need arises, that is when the scholars are consulted. And together with that, on an annual basis, there is an auditing that is done. So the entire year that finished, an auditing is done and an auditing report is filed, so that we can see and make sure that all the transactions that are happening are in compliance with the Sharia. Yeah, and we are the ones who provide the reports. And we look at the files and we have access to all the transactions that take place.
I have a question to Mufti Yahya. So this is regarding extravagance and moderation. So let's say if a brother wants to get married, for example, and Indian marriage is nothing less than extravagance in itself, right? So let's say if he wants to have a simple wedding, for example, but one thing he has to know is his decision is not always final. There are a lot of people involved in the decision making, right? So if he wants to have a simple wedding, and where do you draw the line between having a simple wedding at the same time pleasing or not breaking kinship or ties with your close family members or relatives? Because just to add one point that's always behind my mind is when Musa alayhi salam came back from the mountain with the revelation, and he saw his tribe going astray, and when he asked his brother Harun alayhi salam that why do you let them do this, and he said, I was afraid that they'd split apart and break ties. So if breaking kinship is dangerous, or is it so important to protect your kinship or your ties with your relatives, should you adjust when it comes to the situation?
You see, very important point, mashallah. You see, when you spoke about nikah, so very important that marriage has two aspects to it. One is that it is a social transaction, and the other aspect is that it is an act of worship. So it is very important that with regards to the customs and the traditions that are happening, we need to totally boycott those, because this is basically infringement on an act of worship. So yeah, in any type of act of worship, we cannot tolerate any type of infringement, number one. Number two, who is the one, when you say drawing the line, who is the one who is getting a pinch on his pocket? Who is paying? If you are the one who is paying, then why do you want to spend more just for pleasing the people? You want to work your entire, probably so many years, and just for for the benefit of some people, of others, obviously, and that too going against the commands of Sharia, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be displeased. So you have to draw a line, you have to be firm. Yeah, there will be a certain people wherein you will find that they disagree with you, but a time will come when they will reconcile. They will know that this is the boundary that we have, we cannot transgress that. Yes, if there is someone else who is spending, then you cannot stop them. But if you are spending, it is your hard-earned money, then you don't want to spend it in disobedience of Allah. This is something that you need to keep in mind. I think that is sufficient.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalam ji.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalam.
From congratulations to everyone, from a bottom heart level, I'm congratulating to everyone, the employees and the board of the directors and everyone, because you've done very well organization. I am very thankful for that. My question is very simple. Why don't you open some branches, like you should have to have a sales team? And second question is here in between, microfinance. Because I work for Bajaj company, because we are doing finance. So why don't you have some small microfinance?
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first part was, okay, he's walking away. Yeah. Thanks for the kind words. So the first part about the sales team, so we do have a sales team. It's not a very big sales team. We have two people who are in investor relations and one business sales team who gets business clients. As far as branches are concerned, we have one branch in Calicut and we are open to opening branches in other locations if there is sufficient demand, inshallah. So definitely we need to grow the concept and extend ourselves. Inshallah, we plan to do that also. As far as the other question about microfinance. So currently, our focus is on business finance, and we have a minimum ticket size of about 10 lakhs. So we do not do funding below 10 lakhs to any business. Since our focus is on businesses, corporate finance, we are currently focusing on that area. There are other institutions, many institutions that actually work in microfinance. In Bangalore, Lifeline Foundation is there. You have in other states also, Sangamam, Sahulat, Khidmat in Hyderabad. These are all cooperative societies that do microfinance. Baitul Nasr, there's many that are there in the field of microfinance, but as a company that is focusing on corporate finance, giving funding to businesses who are not able to get Sharia compliant funding, we are probably one of the very few. So that's why we want to focus on this area, at least for the near future, inshallah. Consumer durables like your company does, I don't think there is anyone that does that as on date on a Sharia compliant manner. Maybe in the future we can see how we can address that, inshallah.
ऑडियो एसबीआई कार्ड में लोगों को 5,000 डिस्काउंट होगा, आईसीआईसीआई कार्ड में लोगों को 5,000 डिस्काउंट होगा, क्या ये किस्मों पे लेना जायज़ है? क्रेडिट कार्ड में 5,000 डिस्काउंट, आपको डेबिट कार्ड में 4,000 डिस्काउंट, ऐसे ऑप्शंस आते हैं।
ले सकते, you can.
जी Jazakumullah khairan. I hope all of you are enjoying the dinner, and inshallah we hope to stay in touch in the future. The brochures has our contact details on the back, so please feel free to reach out to us for anything. We will share the presentations from today's session inshallah with all of you, and hope to keep in touch inshallah. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallah wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu.